On the outskirts of a sprawling sheep station, police scour through the scrub and dust. It's their fourth time on the remote South Australian property.
Just out of a sense of thoroughness, we'll continue to search for Gus for as long as it takes.
The pictures that we paint of the vastness of Australia perhaps just don't hit home enough. The people up there love it, but some people from the city and communities don't. They think it's just endless nothing.
No, absolutely no way that there's anything suspicious. I guess that's the most important thing, to get out there and just to stop with the conspiracy theories. In all that time that we have been neighbours, they have been absolutely the best kind of people you can get on this planet.
And emotions at the private family's outback homestead are running high.
Shut your face and get out!
A tabloid reporter from Interstate getting a frosty reception after ignoring repeated warnings to stay away.
We'll have the police on you because you've been warned not to come here. Now get out! Get out!
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
When it comes to missing children cases like this one, no news is bad news. But one has to wonder, is someone out there relieved that this case is out of the news? And are they starting to think they can start getting back to their lives business as usual, as if Gus never mattered, as if Gus never disappeared? And it's within this dead zone of no news that I received a call from Australia. This source provided me with a lot of information I already knew, but there are a few comments that added to my knowledge meaningfully. I do want to stress that what I'm about to share is someone's opinion, and also, to some extent, my interpretation of that opinion. And so it's up to you to decide whether any of these speculations hold any real value. But before we get to that, if you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please do hit the thanks button. A big thank you to Joni Gamil 2718. Thank you so much for your contribution. For those interested in the Nick Reiner saga, I'll be doing an analysis on him as well, so look out for that. If you're interested in the GUS LAMONT case and you still haven't subscribed to the channel, maybe it's time to do so, and let's get started. So number one, the focus needs to be on Shannon. Now, it's interesting to me that of all the people you would think we would hear from, Shannon is kind of the most obvious, because she was essentially with Gus when he disappeared, and so she ought to feel responsible, shouldn't she? But the truth is, she wasn't with Gus. She should have been, but she wasn't. Now, although I agree that Shannon needs to be looked at, let's circle back to this after touching on a couple of other keystones. Number two, why wasn't Josh called immediately? Now, one possible explanation was that Josh wasn't sober. Remember, the incident happened on a Saturday night going into a Sunday morning. So if he had been alerted, and let's say if he had been drinking, there was a fear potentially that he would have driven to the station at night while under the influence, potentially making a bad situation worse. Is it also possible that Josh's sobriety is the reason Jessica and Josh aren't together? By the way, Jessica and Josh aren't actually married. On that sort of family tree thing, it's sort of suggested that they are married. They are simply a couple. They're not really married. Number three, questions surrounding Ronnie's first birthday. Ronnie's first birthday, did you know this was 6 days or just a few days after Gus disappeared? Who attended that party or get together? But more importantly, who didn't? Number four, Josie is all about Josie. All they care about is sheep. Let's put those words on screen. All they care about is sheep. Now, bear in mind, this is a sheep farm. And that is a direct quote. And while it may not seem much on the surface, it made me think about this case in a much more intimate way. What happens when you think of everything through the perspective of sheep and a sheep farm? Sheep's going missing, sheep's being slaughtered, the silence of the lambs, all that kind of thing. Apparently the excavations you see in the aerial photos are related to Josie's bungalow, if I understood correctly. Now, if that's true, and if Gus fell into an excavated hole, and if that construction was really Josie's thing, Josie's deal, Josie's project, they're not cordoning off one of those pits. Well, if a child fell into one and died, couldn't some legal liability arise? I'm not sure what or how it would work, but there could be significant damages, couldn't there? Especially if the father found out and decided to sue. Number 5, Josh and Josie don't get along. Now, this isn't breaking news. The father of Gus and the father-in-law, essentially, was that mother-in-law, they clash. That's no surprise. Josh is a tell-it-like-it-is type, very forthright, but Josie is also a ruler of the roost. She's really the dominant force, clearly, in this particular saga, and quite critical and controlling of those around her. Now, if you're a sheep farmer, isn't that your world? Isn't that how you see people, either as sheep to be told what to do or as shepherds? According to my source, Josie is quite manipulative. That might be an opinion, but if one thinks about the snake incident and the shotgun, was the shotgun really brought out and brandished for an invisible snake, or was it meant to intimidate the reporter in no uncertain terms? And then to say after the fact it was for a snake, doesn't that seem a tad devious? Now, none of that is rocket science. I have actually brought that up before. But apparently the system that is used, there are shovels on the porch beside the door, and these are used to dispatch snakes, not shotguns. But small things are often evidence of bigger things, and isn't Shotgun Gate such a thing, a sign of just how sensitive this family is to having interlopers arrive at the house unannounced? I mean, what is so devastatingly terrible about a journalist interested in looking for your missing child? What is so terrible about a journalist pitching up unannounced or not? Many would welcome the interest. Imagine now, with there being no coverage, or perhaps the opposite. They wouldn't welcome the interest. But many would welcome the interest and see it as support, not be enraged by it, let alone all the excuses about why there was so much overkill and drama in dealing with it. But here's the rub. If something happened to Gus that wasn't really anyone's fault, but because it happened on the property and because those pits weren't fenced off, could that lead to a forthright father taking on the rule of the roost and settling a score, possibly in court? Now, on paper, Josh probably wouldn't have much chance going it alone, but if the media, or worse, the cops, cottoned on, assuming this theory is even credible, well, then Josh could do some damage. And if an accident was covered up, the covering up then becomes a crime. That's a criminal offense, which creates all the more incentive to keep the cover-up covered up. And then wouldn't it be important to keep Shannon away from Josh? Was Josh at Ronnie's first birthday? Did Josh actually ever speak to Shannon and ask her, what happened? What do you remember? Number 6, all they care about is sheep. According to my source, Josie isn't interested in Aussie rules football, which was a big deal that night and at that time of night, so there goes that theory. Now consider this. What if sheep have made the owner of the Oak Park station rich, so rich that they have been able to afford to purchase several properties? If there is some sort of cover-up, there may not be, but if there is it to protect all the accumulated treasure? And that brings us to number 7, a handy loophole. I'd be very interested to know what the cell phones did on the night in question. Were they turned off? What was the messaging? And who called the police? Although the station owners use cell phones, the coverage of the property is erratic, and we know the folks apparently searched for Gus for 3 hours before calling the authorities. Obviously, by the time the authorities were called, it was pitch dark and difficult to search or investigate anything. The fact that the cell phone coverage of the property is erratic is a handy explanation for cell phone tracking to go offline, well, if that's the case. Now, something else that's worth pointing out is the prototypical agricultural calendar, which means that on sheep farms in Australia, activity peaks during spring, and that is when lambs are born. In other words, things get busy. Things start to get busy in September when pasture growth is at its highest. That's when the lambs are born. That's when the lambs are marked and weaned, and sometimes even shearing takes place. So if things got busy at Oak Park Station in September, did that have anything to do with when or how Gus disappeared? That's something to think about, isn't it? Well, we know when Gus disappeared, most of his adult family members were actually attending sheep, weren't they? Well, I'm not going to take it further than that, but I would be interested in hearing your thoughts in the comments, so do let me know what you think. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.